What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today Grandmaster Nightfalls are back in Destiny 2, and it's double Nightfall rewards this week. So we have a guide for the current weekly Strike the Glassway, generally considered to be one of the hardest Grandmasters in the entire game, but we're going to be showcasing 3 different loadouts, one for each class, and a bunch of strike-specific tips to help you beat this Grandmaster as easy as possible. And so, let's get started. Now, first things first, the important modifiers you want to know about are, firstly, the champions are going to be Overload and Barrier, and the acute burn is Void. So you're going to be doing 25% more Void damage, but taking 50% more incoming Void damage. So if you can fit a Void damage resist mod on your chest piece, that is going to be very, very helpful. So let's start here with my Titan build, and I'm actually going to be using a Striker. Now, that's because I can use the nutty Arc Grenadier build. So I have Storm Grenade, then I'm combining that with the Touch of Thunder aspect, which is going to massively improve all of my grenades, but specifically for Storm Grenade, it's going to make it last longer, and it's going to make it seek after enemies. Then I've got Knockout as my second aspect, Spark of Magnitude, combined with Spark of Shock, Spark of Ions, and lastly, Spark of Recharge. Just everything to get my grenades back more often and make them more powerful. Now, as for the weaponry, I am using the Arbalist. Yes, it's boring, but it's very, very good. Built-in anti-barrier rounds, and you only have like a few solar shields and stuff like that. The Arbalist can just crank right through them without actually having to make someone dedicate to using a solar weapon. Then I've actually got the Under Your Skin, right? So this is going to take advantage of that extra Void damage. It's a Void bow for Overload bow rounds, and this actually gets explosive head at level 1. Right, so if you have this crafted back from Season of the Chosen, I believe, this is a very, very good option. Then after that, I'm using the Taipan 4FR, arguably the best linear fusion rifle in the game right now. Super easy to craft. There's a guaranteed quest to go and get this thing. A lot of people have it, and yeah, if you're going to be taking advantage of extra Void damage, this thing hits like an absolute truck, and you're going to be able to slap those bosses and champions with this thing. Now, moving on to the build, my featured exotic is the Armamentarium, just for a second grenade, but the Heart of Inmost Light would be fantastic here as well. Then I've got Bountiful Wells for more well production. Then I've got Ashes to Assets. I'm using my grenades all the time, so more super energy is nice. I've got Elemental Ordnance for Arc Elemental Wells when I get grenade kills. In fact, I've got 2 of them to stack with Bountiful Wells. Then I do have Seeking Wells, super important in Grandmasters for making a well build function, because you're not always able to leave cover and go and get your wells. This will make the wells come to you. And then I've got, importantly, Lightning Strikes Twice, a fantastic seasonal mod that gives me more grenade recharge. And then I actually do have Surge Detonators. However, this is coming with a big warning. As you can see right here, guys, Surge Detonators is not working as intended. I stun this champion, and it just runs at me. Right, so be aware. I thought this would be a lot better than it actually was. It's still fantastic for killing of every other ad, but specifically against Overload champions, I would definitely rely on your bow. Like, stun them with your bow and then throw the grenade for all of that extra damage and to keep their health from regenning. But yeah, the initial stun, you don't want Surge Detonators. Perhaps using something like Bad Amplitude would be the better option. Now, moving on from there, my other teammate was using a Night Stalker Hunter, again taking advantage of that extra Void damage, invisibility thanks to Trapper's Ambush and Vanishing Step, and we've got Echo of Persistence, Echo of Obscurity, and Echo of Leeching, all very good. For the weapons, we do have a Blinding Grenade Launcher, the Lingering Dread here, with Chill Clip autoloading, fantastic for crowd control. Then we have the Le Monarque. So this is going to create a poison cloud of continuous damage. It's a very, very good bow. benefiting from that extra void damage, and just this season it now has built-in overload rounds, so you don't need to waste a mod slot on it. Then we do have the royal entry here, a lasting impression, field prep, impact casing, basically the utter god roll. Now this is going to be to take care of the wyverns. They don't really have a crit, so those linear fusions aren't that good against them. The royal entry is fantastic against those wyverns. Now moving on, we do have the Aeon Swift to generate heavy ammo for your teammates. Then we do have an overload bow mod? Wait a minute, I just said you didn't need one with the Le Monarque. Well, my teammate actually found out that it's the poison cloud that stuns overload champions. So if you don't have a perfect draw, it won't stun an overload champion. So if you do have room on your build, you can put on this mod and that will guarantee a stun even if it's not a perfect draw. So just consider that. We then have Reaping Wellmaker for well production. Moving on from there, of course, we have Powerful Friends. We also have Radiant Light for just more stats, and Well of Utility, so we're getting our class ability more often, and lastly, Font of Might to boost the damage of those void weapons even more. Moving on from there, my last teammate is just using a simple Well of Radiance Warlock here. However, they're actually using Empowering Rift and then using the Fusion Grenade build. So we have Icarus Dash plus Touch of Flame combined with Ember of Solace, Ember of Wonder, Ember of Eruption, and Ember of Searing. And then the featured exotic, of course, is going to be the Starfire Protocol to give them an extra Fusion Grenade, and they're going to generate more grenade energy from empowered weapon damage, hence the Empowering Rift. Then for the weapons, literally the exact same ones I'm using. After that, we do have the Ashes to Assets perk being used here. Obviously a lot of grenades, that's very good. Elemental Charge, so you get charged with light for picking up those elemental wells. Elemental Ordnance, obviously. Well of Life for that healing, and then High Energy Fire, turning all those wells into even more weapon damage. Now moving on to tips for the strike itself. So you're going to start out here and you're going to get to these rooms, and this is really where your arc grenades are going to come into their own. You chuck one into this room and it will seek around and devastate all of the normal red bar adds, so you can better focus on the more powerful adds and champions. So as you're going from room to room to room, just chuck those arc grenades at the beginning of the encounter and watch them absolutely devastate everything. And also, since we are using Aeons, don't be afraid to have liberal use of your heavy. I mean, the Taipan absolutely slaps. You can see how quickly you can take down these big bad bosses with a few people with Taipans, like holy crap. But moving on from there, eventually you're going to get to this objective where you have to drain the Radiolarian fluid by standing on this plate. And a couple of tips for this part, because it can be very difficult. You don't need all 3 people to stand on this plate. In fact, I would highly recommend you don't do that. Only have 1 person on this plate, and you can see me, I'm using the nearby cover. And that way, if there is a bunch of shanks and snipers coming, they can maybe kill the guy on the plate, but the other 2 teammates will be able to take them out and revive them. Also, you don't need to have someone constantly on the plate. In fact, if you're being pressured too much, you don't want that. You actually want to get on the plate until ads spawn and then get off, deal with the ads, and then no more will spawn until you get back on the plate. So that way you can control the frequency of the spawning ads to whatever your team can actually handle. And of course, though, on this part, this is where that well really comes into its own. But honestly, this part was pretty darn easy thanks to the under your skin with that void boost. Like, it was one-shotting most of the ads in this Grandmaster. However, moving on from there, as you go through the trench, just remember to be really vigilant of those snipers at the very top left and right. They can just goink you so darn fast, so just keep an eye on those guys. But then we do move into the boss fight, and frankly, like, this is where you're gonna spend the majority of your time. Honestly, it's not uncommon to spend more time in the boss fight than the time it took to get to the boss fight entirely. But this section here is why I'm using this Arc Grenadier build. You're going to hold out in the left-hand structure because the right hand has a floor of Vex Milk that hurts you, so obviously you want to go left, and you're really just in here as the ads come to you and as the boss kind of lingers outside trying to get the perfect angle to snipe you inside here, but it can't go in here. So you can just stay in here and yeet out these arc grenades that will seek enemies. And that's absolutely fantastic. In fact, a big problem with this section is that a lot of people will either run out of ammo trying to take down this boss, or there's ammo outside in the arena that you can't go and get because the boss will melt you as you try to get to it, unless you're like an invisible hunter. So again, with these grenades, they give you a constantly regenerating, so you don't need ammo, source of damage. And you're going to see me quite a bit just chuck a few at the boss. They do a pretty decent amount of damage, and I just yeet back into cover, and I'm completely safe. So again, just that backup in case I do run out of ammo, and just an easy way to do a lot of killing while still being in the safety of this structure. However, again, really bad against the overload champion, so be sure to have the bow guys ready to yoink those overloads and melt them as quickly as possible. You also do not want to be afraid to melt the Transcendent Hydra as soon as it kind of pokes its head in. You know, use your supers, use your heavy, try to kill that guy as quickly as possible, because you really want him to despawn and get out of the way, otherwise he's going to be right in that structure you're holding out in. Now, if the ads in this part are too overwhelming, I would recommend a Stasis Warlock, especially with the Bleak Watcher turrets. That can completely lock up all of the enemies coming inside and freezing them. But again, if you are running builds similar to us, you're going to have enough power to just kill the enemies like outright. You don't need to freeze them if they're all dead from those insane lightning grenades. Wyverns, however, will start to spawn later on during this section, and they aren't so easily killed. So definitely, again, a rocket launcher, heavies, supers, take those guys down very fast is recommended. But also the Wyverns is really where the blinding grenade comes into effect, because you can blind those guys and then easily take them down after that. But once you're on top of the ads, the next part is killing the big bad boss, and this is not a cakewalk because this guy shoots Void, which is now 50% more lethal. So you really need to kite the boss, and what that is get one person to go out, shoot the boss like from one of the like far sides of this left side structure, and kind of get him to aggro on one guy as that guy is, you know, backing up trying to remain in safety. The other two guys can get into an advantageous position to shoot the boss. Or if you're using Taipans, again, have one guy off on the far right side, one guy off on the far left side, and kind of just, as you can see from the background gameplay, he's aggroing at the guy on the complete opposite side, but I can still get headshots from the side here on the opposite corner. Eventually, he's going to aggro to me, and then we kind of, you know, switch back and forth. You don't want to have everyone going out one doorway and getting absolutely cranked. Like, this boss can kill you easily, right? So you're probably just gonna die, and that's okay as long as your team is split up trying to kite the boss from these opposite corners. If one guy goes down, the other guys will just try to, you know, kite him away from the dead body and get an easy res. And so guys, hopefully with these loadouts and tips, you're able to beat the Glassway Grandmaster. Honestly, this is one of the fastest and easiest runs we've ever had. Power creep is a heck of a drug. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.